Hello and welcome back to the Cupcake Jemma channel with me, Jenna, and today I'm going to be baking one of my new favourite things to make, which is cream puffs, but with choux au craquelin. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's a choux bun, which is like a sort of delicious pillow, but this time topped with craquelin. And craquelin is a kind of basic cookie dough, I guess. You kind of make a disc, pop it on top of the choux pastry, and when it bakes, it creates this really lovely, crunchy, crispy crust. The three crusts. And the best news about these things is they're really easy to make. I'm going to fill mine with Creme Diplomat, which is delicious because it's like basically whipped cream custard, which is awesome. And I'm going to get on with making the craquelin discs now. So I'm going to put all the ingredients on the screen. So by all means, just stab me right now and take a screenshot, or you can just go in the description box below, or if you're a member of the Bake Club, of course, you will have a downloadable PDF that you can print off and laminate and put in a folder, whatever floats your boat. But anyway, cracking on, crackelaning on. Let's go. So I've got a soft butter. So I've got 35 grams of soft butter. Now this is soft, it's spreadable. You want to be able to spread this onto a piece of, cheap white bread without tearing it. So that's going in a bowl. And then I have 20 grams of caster sugar and 20 grams of Demerara sugar. Now you can use 40 grams of whichever sugar, single sugar or sugar combo you like. You can use all caster, you can even use like brown sugar, dark brown sugar. I like to do this mixture because I think Demerara gives it a really nice extra crunch, so that's going into my butter as well. And I'm just going to use my spatula to merely press it together. We're not trying to whip this up or anything, we just want to get these ingredients combined. Once the sugar and butter is nicely combined, you can add your flour. So I've got 40 grams of plain flour. I'm just popping that in and again, just pressing it together with the spatula. It'll start to make a sort of breadcrumb consistency, and when it seems nice and even, you can turn it out onto your worktop and then just press it all together into one ball with your hands. Now we need to roll this out, but it's pretty sticky, so I like to split down the side of a Ziploc bag, just using some scissors, and the bottom so that I can open it out flat. Pop my ball of dough right into the middle, flap it back over, and then use a rolling pin just to roll that out. Now you want to change direction every now and then to make sure it's a nice circle, and try and roll it out between 2 and 3 millimeters thick. Then that needs to go into the freezer for about 10 or 15 minutes to really firm up. Because the next thing we need to do is remove it from the freezer and cut out 5-centimeter rounds using a cookie cutter. Just pop them onto a baking sheet lined with greaseproof paper. And then they need to go into the freezer as well. Now there will be a lot of offcuts. You can actually re-roll this as many times as you like. Just warm it up a little bit in your hands, squish it together, and then repeat until you've used all of your dough. You should get about 20 discs out of this amount of dough. While my discs are freezing, I'm going to crack on with my, it's so tempting to say craquelin, with my choux pastry. Now I've prepared my baking sheets already. You're going to need 2 because this amount of dough will probably yield about 18 to 20, which is just too many to cram onto one tray without them all like sticking together. So as you can see, what I've done is I've created a little template for myself because I want my dough piped out to be about 5 centimeters in diameter. I just found like a lid that I drew around, but you can actually buy Silpats with the circles already on them if you want to do that. They're quite useful for things like macarons as well, so by all means invest in one of those. But I didn't have one of those, so I just wung it. So yeah, they're ready, and also if you do this, make sure you flip over the baking sheet, the greaseproof paper, to make sure you're not piping onto the pen, because otherwise it will just bake into your dough. I actually did that yesterday by mistake and it just looked awful. And tasted weird. So, cracking on. Right, we're going to make the choux pastry. Now, this always starts with a bit of melting and a bit of heating. So I've got 65 grams of whole milk. Just going to put that in a medium-sized pan, along with the same amount of water. And then I have 60 grams of cold chopped butter. And I'm also going to put in a pinch of salt. So this should be about 2 grams. And then I'm going to put that onto the heat. So on a low-medium heat, get that melting together, Give it a stir now because you want to make sure that your salt is dissolved fully. And we're going to bring that to a bubbling boil. So once it's bubbling, you can take it off the heat. I'm going to leave the hob on because I'm going to come back to it. And we're going to add our flour. So I'm just going to put it through a sieve just to get rid of any lumps. Ooh, try not to make a mess like I did. And I'm going to do this off the heat because I don't want to like keep cooking it now because it might just all speed up the process a little bit too much. But I'm just going to use my spatula just to stir that all together so that the flour starts to hydrate and absorb all that liquid. Right, that's all good. So I'm going to put that back on the heat. Yep, I've got it on medium heat and I'm going to stir that with my spatula while it's heating. And we're kind of aiming for it to be glossy. It should pull away nicely from the sides of the pan, but also it should leave a sort of a film on the bottom of the pan. If you're using a non-stick pan though, it will do something different. It will have little droplets on the surface of the pan rather than leaving that film like I just spoke about. But most pans aren't non-stick, so I'll kind of roll with that. But I'm just going to keep it going on this heat with my spatula, just kind of folding it over itself, pressing it in, just so that it heats nice and evenly. What we're aiming to do is just evaporate some of that liquid and obviously activate some of that gluten and probably some other stuff that I don't really understand. Right, we now need to add the eggs, but obviously this is mega hot, so we're gonna pop it into a big bowl to cool it down. And the best way of doing this is to spread it all around the bottom and the sides, and that will help to cool it down a lot quicker so it doesn't shock those eggs. So while that's cooling, you can prepare your eggs. Now, the amount of eggs you're putting into your choux pastry mixture will vary because it all depends on how much liquid is evaporated in the cooking process, and that will vary depending on like how hot you had it and I don't know, like how much you stirred, how long you left it on for. So it will be ever so slightly different each time. I recommend cracking 3 eggs and giving them a whisk because that way you can use up to 3. I doubt very much you'll need any more than 3. I normally come out at about 2.5. So once your choux paste is just still a bit warm, you can start adding your eggs. I usually start by adding 1/3, just stirring it in with a spatula until it's all combined and then adding the second third. And then with the last bits of egg, just add them a little bit at a time, mixing really well after each one. And we're looking for a very specific kind of consistency here. You want to test it by using the V-shape method. So all you need to do there is pick a little bit of the batter up with your spatula, let it drop, and it should form a nice V shape at the bottom of the spatula. That's ready. So, as you can see, I have quite a lot of egg left, so good job I didn't just put it all in like gung-ho, because it would have been too wet. And if that does happen, I'm afraid there are ways to fix it, but they are quite long-winded. You have to make another roux and add it, and it's all just very complicated. So it's a little bit like, that's why you need to go super cautious with the egg so that you don't go overboard. But anyway, I've got a nice big piping bag here, and I've got a sort of smallish round nozzle on the end. If you don't have a nozzle, you could just do that by cutting it, no big deal, but I like the surety of a very, very precise round circle. So I'm just going to put all my dough into that piping bag. So to pipe these out, you need to make sure you're holding your piping bag completely vertically. If it goes in at an angle, they're going to bake a little bit lopsided. So using your circle as a guide, apply a really even pressure, making sure the tip's constantly in contact with the dough, and stop squeezing when you reach the line. And then just keep going until you've used up all your dough. Once you've piped out all of your dough, you can run back to the freezer, grab your little frozen discs of Craquelin, and then just pop one on the top of each blob. Then they need to be baked at 185 degrees C in a non-fan assisted oven. Why a non-fan assisted oven, Gemma? Because you always use a fan, don't you? Yes, well, I do, but I've tested it in both fan assisted and non-fan assisted, and I found that they just rise a lot more evenly when there is no fan involved, because I think they just get a little bit blown around in there. So, use your top and bottom heat setting, 185 degrees C. If you only have a fan assisted oven, that might be a thing, then just do them at 170, 175 degrees. We're gonna bake them first of all for 15 minutes. Then, after the 15 minutes is up, we're going to drop the temperature down 15 or 20 degrees. So I'm going to drop mine down to, 170 degrees in my top and bottom heat and bake them for another 15 minutes. Then when all of that time is up, I'm going to turn the oven off but leave the oven slightly ajar. I'm just going to stuff a pair of oven gloves in there or something just to wodge it open, and then leave them in there to cool for another 15 minutes. We are back, and my cream puffs are all cold. They're not, I mean, they are cold. They're also crispy. Don't know if you can hear that. Crispy, nice, and got a lovely crispy crunchy top. So now we need to get on with making the filling, which as promised is a Creme Diplomat. I've already made my Creme Patissiere. So if you don't know what Creme Diplomat is, essentially it's Creme Patissiere whipped up with whipped cream. Stirred together with whipped cream. So my creme pat was really easy to make. All I did was I got a medium-sized saucepan, put 500 grams of whole milk in there along with 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and just let that heat on a medium heat just until it was coming to steaming. While that was happening, I got my eggs and sugar together. So in a big bowl, I whisked together 85 grams of caster sugar and 3 eggs plus 1 egg yolk, just until it was starting to lighten up in colour. Then I added 15 grams of plain flour and 15 grams of corn flour and whisked those in as well until the mixture was nice and smooth. So by now the milk was steamy, so I took it off the heat and slowly poured it into the eggs in a thin stream, whisking constantly, and this tempered the eggs to make sure they didn't scramble. Once it was all in, I poured the mixture back into the saucepan and then popped it back on the heat, just on a medium-high heat, and stirred it continuously with my whisk until it thickened up and was bubbling. Then I removed it from the heat, passed it through a sieve into a shallow container, and then popped some cling film directly onto the surface just to prevent any skin from forming before I left it to cool and then popped it in the fridge. Now, when it comes out of the fridge, it's often a little bit sort of gelatinous and weird and blobby. So before you do anything, before you start making the Creme Diplomat, I definitely recommend just whisking your creme pat or even using an immersion blender just to smooth it out so that it becomes like this nice thick custard again. We don't want lumpy Creme Diplomat, do we? Anyway, I weighed this because Creme Diplomat is equal quantities Creme Patissiere to cream. So this was 600 grams, and so I've got 600 grams of cream. Now I'm using whipping cream today. Normally I would go for double cream, but I find that whipping cream is a bit lighter, it's also a bit more stable. So, and also sometimes it's easier to find for people in other countries. So I'm gonna roll with that. But if you wanna use double cream for a little bit more richness, go ahead. So 600 grams of cream. And this has been in the fridge, so it's nice and cold and will be much easier to whip up. And I'm using, this is a lot of cream, so I'm using my machinery. And actually, this is gonna make more filling than you need, but it's definitely better to have more filling than not enough, because you don't wanna have a couple of empty puffs on your hands. So, get whipping. Now, let's see where we're at. Yeah, this is nice, sort of medium peaks. It's, like I said, whipping cream is a bit more stable than double cream, so it's a bit safer sometimes, and even if you go a little bit over, it's often not the end of the world. But I'm going to mix these two things together. You can do this either with a spatula or a balloon whisk, and I'm gonna go ahead with the balloon whisk. So I'm gonna do it in stages, just maybe half or 2/3 to start with. Yeah, a little bit more perhaps, and then just gently whisk that through with the whisk. And then once that's all in, you can put the rest in. Lovely. Now you can see it's just so light and whippy, and the flavour of it, if I just allow myself a little treat, it's just light, ever so slightly custardy, and just really creamy and lovely. Right, so as you can see, this is quite a lot, but hopefully there's some nice cavities in my puffs to fill up with cream. So I've got a nice big piping bag. I haven't put a nozzle in it or anything. I don't think you really need to, but by all means do if you want. I'm gonna probably only be able to put like half of this in, so let's see. Right, so I'm armed with my piping bag full of delicious whippy goodness, but how is it gonna get in my puffs, guys? Well, I like to use something like a chopstick, or I don't have any here actually. So I've got a paintbrush. You can use whatever you like really, as long as it's not too big. And you're gonna need to poke a little hole into the bottom. So hopefully this will be nice and crispy. Oh yes. Just make a little hole. Obviously don't go all the way through to the other side and have it poking up, otherwise you'll have like a Creme Diplomat fountain on your hands, which would be quite fun, but this isn't what we want. So just go ahead and put little holes into all of your puffs, and then snip the end off your piping bag and just gently fill those until they are completely stuffed full of this yummy, whippy Creme Diplomat. God, oh, he's weighty. He's a weighty one. Now I do have quite a bit of Creme Diplomat left over, and you might do as well. Do not panic if you have it a lot. You can actually freeze it really well. So I'm gonna put mine in a Tupperware container, pop it into the freezer, and then when I need to do anything with Creme Diplomat again, I'll just defrost it at room temperature and then give it a little whip to bring it back to life. Or you can make something like a banana pudding, or you can just sort of, have some strawberries with it, just dollop it on. Oh, the list is endless. But for now, I can't really wait. So what we're gonna do with the rest of these is put them into the fridge, because they kind of need to, I don't wanna say like mature, but there's, in the same way that like a macaron benefits from a little bit of time in the fridge, sort of softening up, like the inside helps the outside bit like marry up. That will happen in the fridge, and also the Creme Diplomat will firm up a little bit as well, just to make it a little bit easier. But I can't wait for that, because I've been working really hard making this and I am gagging for it. So I'm gonna have a bit now, but it's gonna be a bit messy, so here goes. Ooh. Yummy. That's so good. And do you know what? You think you're getting something really like heavy and rich, but actually it's one of the lightest things you could ever put in your mouth. Like, this choux pastry is just such a delight. Just a sort of thin crust around a sort of bubble of air filled with this. Light and whippy, delicately custardy. Got that crunch on top from the Craquelin and the Demerara Sugar I put in there. I'm just such a mess. Hang on. A polls, everybody. Come back in a minute. Okay, come back in a second. Well, that's it from me. I'm gonna put these in the fridge and share them out, enjoy them when they're at their best. This is pretty good, but they are really much better after about an hour in the fridge, so do that. And they will keep really well as well. They'll keep their crust because of the Craquelin. So you could probably store these and eat them like over a day or two. And let me know how you get on, because I think that's one of the easiest, most delightful bakes you can do. If you agree, let me know in the comments below. Put your pictures on Instagram and hashtag me Cupcake Jemma. Or if you're a member of the Bake Club, don't forget we have a special thread there for all your bakes that you do. And if you encounter any issues or some surprises, or you want to know more, or you've just got a good idea, let me know there, because I'm always there chatting with you. Yeah, so we'll put a link to that as well, in case you want to join us over on the Bake Club. But anyway, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. I will see you again next week for another bake. So until then, I'm going to get messy again, because this is just kind of winking at me. Bye.